They start at 11 from 11 to 11:30 for networking. So it's an opportunity for you to interact with each other. But since one of our hosts is also running off to grab us lunch, I wanted to keep going here. And I wanted to really thank Blaze, particularly Ku Young, for hosting us today and also providing the lunch for us. And so. A lot of work, and maybe Ku, you want to come up and say a few words about Blaze and your work here before we start?
Well, first thing I want to apologize, our sound system is not working. It used to be our IT in here, this building, and they moved out of this building, so then everything disconnected is not working. So apologize for that. So we just have to use our arm speaker here. Hopefully that works. Thank you, Nepal, and the Hmong Committee 100 for letting Blaze Credit Union host this lunch. And I know most of you, but my name is Ku Yang. I'm a commercial lender, business law officer at Blaze Credit Union. And welcome to Blaze Credit Union. In the past, we were Highway Credit Union, but then 2 years ago, we merged with SBA Credit Union. And SBA Credit Union was another credit union in the Twin City here, and they have 22 branch in the metro area here, and then we have a 4 branch. We merged, so we're total of 26 branch in the Twin City here. So we become a Blaze Credit Union. So we have a total of 4 billion X. So that's a good size credit union. We have all different services, including commercial, residential, mortgage, consumer loan, auto loan, credit card, business credit card. So we have all the services in Blaze Credit Union. I know that many of you are already a member of Blaze Credit Union. Thanks for that. And then those who are not a member yet, consider Blaze for future. So thanks for coming today. So we have a our bathroom is down the hall. It's on the right. You have to pass the lobby and go a little further. So the bathroom is on the right. So you want to go to the bathroom over there. So I'm going to go grab lunch pretty quick and then
Thank you. Well, two of my cars are owned by you guys. That's why I paid off. So plus other loans. So I'm a member of Blaze and been a member of Blaze for a long time. So thank you for your investment in the community, in believing in us, right? So I hope my Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here, and you mentioned that this room is a community room, that if other communities, if we want to use it, we're free to use it as well, right?
Yeah, I just forgot to mention, this is considered a community room for Blaze Credit Union. And if you need a meeting during the weekday, let me know. I can try to schedule for you. But on the weekend, we close everything. So weekday, we open for the community to host a meeting on this room. So.
Okay.
How late the people can use it?
Probably until 4 o'clock or 4:30. Yeah.
Yeah, when we mentioned, I used to serve on the board of a bank, and he was one of our staff, and it's like they're going to host it. It's like a boardroom. I don't think it's large enough for us. So I'm glad we have a large community room like this to host such event, and thank you for welcoming us to the facility. Now, a little bit about the Community 100. Nate thought that, what is this thing, right? And so we're a non-profit 501c4 nonpartisan organization. And we started this in 2024 earlier this year, and started by a group of concerned citizens, basically, and who are leaders in their field. And we recognize the need to confront the growth and development of the community politically, economically, and socially. And it is through the active participations of members who are active in academia, government, business, law, science, and the arts, that we can provide better insight into what's happening in our community. And so we all got together and say, let's form this thing, and it's mirror after other initiatives started by the Italians, the Chinese, the Tibetans, and so on and so forth. And so putting all resources together and really focusing on the community, not so much as the individual. So we always say that normally when we start organizations, everybody wants to be the chair, everybody wants to be the honcho, head honcho, right? In our committee, everybody's running away from those positions. So I wanted to invite the Committee 100 members, please stand up, the founders and members to stand up. Yeah. So these are the people who are active in business, law, academia, and community issues. So it's wonderful to have a group, to be working with a group of people. We're still looking for members and founders. As you say, Committee of 100. It'd be nice to have 100 individuals. And to be a part, it's by invitation. So we just don't pick and choose, but we have a screening process to go through to vet people through and then invite them to come in. So we've had a couple new members that are joining us soon as well. So, but again, thank you very much for all of you for being here. All of our monthly, bi-monthly functions are open to the public. In fact, we want to do it, we want to host a variety of topics. Our first functions was with Ethan John, right, and Minnesota State Legislature, the head of MAP Caucus. We wanted to bring him on and say, tell us what you guys are doing at the Capitol. Right? Tell not to John not to hold not to accountable, right? And so that's one of our what we got tonight though. All right. So that's one of our main goal is to really utilize the system to benefit our community. So that's a little bit about the Committee 100. So if you're interested in being part of the Committee 100, do let us know, do let the members know. Our chair is Mr. Wayne Cyclotop. So he's the guy that plow ahead and we just follow. So as I mentioned, you know, we have many of the, I would say more business members being part of this Committee 100 than any other groups, right? And so there's always been interest in saying, how do we access capital? How do we break down barrier so that we can be successful? Right? So instead of being perhaps some of the contractors, how do we move to become majority contractor versus minority contractors? How do we also to access some of the banking program and services? And so one of the things that popped up was the SBA program. How do we take full advantage of the SBA program? So in fiscal year 2023, the SBA backed 7,500 loans totaling over $6.4 billion for AAPI-owned businesses nationally. And this reflects a 44% increase in the number of loans and a 36% increase in total loan amount under the Biden-Harris administration compared to prior years. So I was a former member of the White House Initiative on AAPI, and after 25 years, they invited all of us to DC and to talk about this. And I'm sitting there in the audience, I'm thinking, and how many of those went to the Hmong business in Minnesota or throughout the United States, right? Locally, the total dollars amount of SBA-backed lending is quite strong as well. So in fiscal year 2023, with over $799 million of the SBA-backed capital obtained by Minnesota small business. Of note, in fiscal year 23, we also saw an increase in number of SBA loans to minority population by 12% compared to the year prior, following large gain since 2020. And as a direct result of SBA guarantee 7A and 504 small business financing, over 18,400 jobs across Minnesota were created or saved. And these loans are made through banks, credit unions, CDFIs, and CDCs. So according to my colleague and economic professor, Dr. Bruce Corey of Concordia University, In 2022, we estimated that the buying power of the Hmong community in Minnesota is at $1.1 billion. That we paid over $138 million in annual taxes. Furthermore, there are over 9,000 Hmong businesses in Minnesota with over $1 billion in sales. When I moved to Minnesota in so this to compare, when I moved to Minnesota in 1979, there was no Hmong grocery store. We had to buy Asian products from a Thai lady who was selling produce out of the trunk of a car and garage in Little Canada. Things are very different now, right? You go on University Avenue, you go to Hmong Village, you go to Hmong Marketplace, you can buy the freshest produce anywhere, tropical fruits from Florida, right? And many of them grown by Hmong people. We would like to grow our business, employ more people, and contribute to this great state and nation of ours. So it is fitting that Committee 100 invite SBA Administrator Brian McDonald for a conversation with some of our business leaders today. Excuse me. So as we talk about conversation, I'm thinking of sitting around the table. So hope you don't mind the stadium style kind of arrangement. But in a little bit about Brian, in May of 2020, the U.S. Small Business Administration appointed Brian McDonald to be the district director of its Minnesota district office. And in this role, he manages the strategic efforts and daily operations of SBA small business support throughout the state of Minnesota. He is well acquainted with the need of the state's 500,000 small businesses, having served as SBA Minnesota Deputy District Director since 2017. So under his leadership, Mr. McDonald's team worked to facilitate SBA-backed loans, advocated small business for federal government contracting opportunity. That's something that many of our businesses are interested in. And improve entrepreneurial development and strengthen business growth in all 87 Minnesota counties. So prior to moving to Minnesota, McDonald spent 5 years with SBA's Office of Entrepreneurial Development in Washington, D.C. In addition to his experience with the SBA, McDonald served as the President's Management Council, served on the President's Management Council as a policy analyst at Health and Human Services, served in the U.S. Department of Treasury, CDFI funds, and has private banking experiences. So originally from Rochester, New York, which the weather is not so much different. Brown received an undergraduate degree from Syracuse, New York, Syracuse University, and a master's degree from Georgetown. So, ladies and gentlemen, give me a hand of applause for Mr. Brian McDonald. Thank you very much for Mr. Time.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor to be here, and I'm just getting back from a family trip to Washington D.C., which was cold there also, and so my skin is still just getting used to the winter. I don't know about you guys, and I saw that I missed the Hmong New Year's event, which sounded huge this year with 25,000 people, and sounded like a great event. So just a little bit more about me. So I grew up, my dad ran a transportation company in upstate New York. So I grew up seeing how he grew a business. And then my first job after I went to school was working for a bank. And I think he was kind of scratching his head. How did I raise a banker? I thought maybe you would stay in business. I think it was a really good experience. I was working on as a credit analyst for a bank, so really learning. I heard an interest here for today is access to capital, and so I really learned what does a bank look at when they approve credit, and then I found out about nonprofit, and that's kind of how I got into government. So I was working for a microenterprise institution, and then we had gotten money from the federal government, from the Department of Treasury, and that's what brought me to Washington, D.C. So I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. for a number of years, all on small business finance programs, and then eventually worked for the SBA. So I've been really happy. I met my wife in Washington, D.C., and she has family here in Minnesota, and I never been to Minnesota before and visited and just really fell in love with the community here. I think there's a lot of economic opportunities here. I think it's a great place for raising families. And I heard that the SBA field office was a very strong field office to work for here. So it's been a really good experience. What we do at the Small Business Administration, so we're federal government. I'm a career employee, so I'm not a political appointee. My boss is always a political appointee. So what we do is we help small businesses. We're the only federal government agency dedicated solely to helping small businesses start, grow, expand, and recover. So any stage, as long as you're a small business, we have programs that can help the community. So I can highlight a little bit. And really, I don't have a formal slide deck, so I'm happy to take any questions if someone wants me to highlight something more about SBA, but hopefully for today, you'll walk away with maybe something new that you didn't know about the SBA, because we have, I think when most people think of the SBA, they think of, I'm gonna get an SBA loan. But I'll share a little bit more we have different certification programs, and Nat Lee from our office helps small business owners. Nat, if you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But Nat works with small business owners with our contracting certifications. Nat, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Brian. So I came on board with SBA just about a year now, and pretty new to the agency, but I'm happy to be a part of this agency. There's a lot of resources and opportunities that we can utilize. However, I'm still new, so part of my role is certification. If you are interested in federal certification, there's a number of certifications that we brought from SBA resource here. I would like you to take a look at it. It goes in detail about what we do and things of that nature. But my big test is federal certification. So we have 21 firms in Minnesota who are federal certified. AA programs. The AA program is 8-9 years. Once you get into that program, there are some set-aside dollars that you can get to participate with the federal. But it's not an easy program. It's complicated, and you should know more about it if you get in there. And down the road, I'd be happy to present more in detail to you guys if you're interested. But today, Brian and I just basically here to share what has been resources a little bit. So with that, I turn back to Brian.
All right, so in Minnesota, and thank you, Professor, we have over 550,000 small businesses as we define them. And one of the questions that I get a lot is, how do you define a small business? What constitutes a small business? And it's actually not, there's no kind of simple answer. It depends on what industry you're in as a business. But typically what we say is it's kind of small and medium-sized businesses. So small and medium-sized, and let's say you're a manufacturing firm, it's 500 employees or less, or 200 million in annual revenue or less. If you're an architecture firm, it might be more like 15 or 20 employees. But for an architecture firm, that's a pretty big architecture firm. So I think you can kind of see the point that it's really kind of small and medium size. So if you are a small and medium sized business, then you can take a look into using SBA Small Business Administration programs. And so as the professor said, in 2023 we had about 800 million in guaranteed loans from SBA across here just in Minnesota alone. So that's a lot of capital that wouldn't happen otherwise under traditional lending. We're about to put out our 2024 numbers, but we saw an increase in 2024. And so we're at about 850 million. So the small business sector is really strong here in the community. And we were the only state in our Great Lakes region that saw an increase in lending to AAPI small businesses in Minnesota in 2024. So we're proud of that. I think there's a lot more we can do, but I think having the invitation today, I think just the community support I know I see Mike here from the Hmong Chamber, who is a great partner of ours also. So I think we just want to make sure that our programs are known to the community, because yes, we had an increase last year, but at the same time, it's a really good program to take opportunities of. And in Minnesota, we have a very strong SBA lending community. So in Minnesota, our number of SBA active lenders is the second most in the country. So we have a number of SBA lenders. The only number one place above us is Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth area. So there's a really great opportunity to use that. So our team, what we do at the field office is we want to just make sure that we're promoting SBA programs and services. So we work a lot with lenders directly, so we're making sure to support the lenders on using SBA loans, but we're also doing training and outreach programs ourselves. So for example, we do a program called FDIC Money Smart, and so this program is about financial literacy, financial management, and it's at no cost to small business owners. So if you know other people in the community who maybe are thinking about starting a small business or just need a little bit extra financial management support, it's a really great training series that we have. And again, it's at no cost, and we call it FDIC Money Smart. It's a partnership that we have for curriculum. We're also out doing something called Thrive Emerging Leaders, and this is a program where it's a program for existing small businesses looking to develop a growth plan. And so every year we take 20 small businesses into this program, and it's worth about $10,000 per small business. SBA pays the cost of each business, so if you're a small business owner, it's no cost to you. And we only do it once a year. We start looking for our cohort sometime in January or February. And again, it's for businesses who want to develop a growth plan. And they go through, it's about 5 or 6 months, and we have 8 different modules. And during the time at the end, we're about to have our graduation. And at the end, they walk away with a growth plan. So that's something that we work on here at the local level. We also do other training programs for steps to starting a small business. So we have other staff members who are fluent in Spanish. Nat is fluent in Hmong and several languages as well. So we have training programs for businesses of any stage, we say. So if you're looking to start a business, we have some great support systems for that, all the way through our Thrive Emerging Leaders program for business owners who are existing business owners looking to develop a growth plan. We also provide customer service at our field office. So we're helping a lot of business owners figure out, it's overwhelming a lot of times. Where do I go? There's no exact path on what you should do to start a business. So we're just a really great resource to point people to the right direction where they're going to feel comfortable depending on what they know already and what part of the state they're in, because our office is serving all 87 counties of Minnesota. So really the work that we do is partnering with what we call resource partners who are located all across the state, and I can get a little bit more into what that is. But we're also, what we say is our mission is 3 C's and a D. So when I say 3 C's and a D, 1 C is capital. So of course, I think most of you might have heard of SBA because of I want to get an SBA loan or I want access to capital. So that's a big space that we're in for one of our C's. But another C is counseling. And so as a small business owner, you can go to an SBA resource partner and get no cost confidential counseling for your business. And so I think you might be aware that there's some statistics out there that Minnesota businesses have one of the highest survivability rates in the country. And I think that there's obviously a lot of reasons for that. I think that making sure that you don't feel as a business owner that you have to go at this alone is really important. And to know, okay, you have the support of your community, but you're also a taxpayer, and what are you getting for your taxpayer dollars? And so we have really great, again, confidential, no-cost counseling programs that you can sign up for, and you don't have to go through a formal 6-month program if you don't want that much structure, but you can sign up for some confidential meetings, either virtual or in person, maybe to just kind of fine-tune your business, or you're thinking about maybe launching a new product, opening up a new location, maybe you are interested in getting a loan. Before you go to your lender or go to a bank or to try to get an SBA loan, we recommend it's really good to meet with a counselor first, so that you know, okay, I'm going in very prepared to this meeting with the bank, and of course no one wants, especially with interest rates where they're at today, you don't want to borrow more than you need to. So instead of going to your lender and saying, I think I need a $75,000 line of credit, you could go in more confidently and say, what I actually need is $33,711, and just feeling, that confidence. If financing is something you need, or marketing is another area that you can get some help with counseling. So I mentioned 3 C's and a D. So capital, counseling, and then contracting. So contracting is the 3rd C, and so as Nat mentioned, we have a couple of certification programs that can help you as a business owner if you're looking to get a contract with the federal government. So Nat manages a portfolio of groups who have small business owners who have certifications, and that can really help put your best foot forward and get more contracts. And so you're going to grow your business and get more revenue through some of these certifications are definitely going to help. So if you have any questions about that, let us know. And then the 3rd thing is disaster relief. So I mentioned we have 3 C's and a D. So again, capital, counseling, contracting, and then disaster. So I think we became more widely known during the pandemic because SBA, we administered 5 new pandemic relief programs. So Paycheck Protection Program is one of them. Shuttered Menu Program is another one. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Some of you may be familiar with, we have a direct loan called the EIDL loan program. So there were 5 new programs that were stood up. This year alone, we still administer direct disaster relief if there is a federally declared disaster or the state declares a disaster. So this year we worked on 2 different disaster relief programs. One of them, and it's kind of ironic, was because of the warm winter weather last year. Business owners that were impacted by the drought and the lack of snow could apply for SBA funding. And we saw a lot of interest. We had about 1,000 applications, and we were able to help approve a couple hundred small business owners. So that was kind of in partnership with Governor Walz. And so that was one active disaster declaration that is now closed for businesses. But then the irony was we had a drought and then we had a flood. So we had the disaster for flooding, and a lot of that was in southern Minnesota, so in Mankato, and then some in Duluth area, impacted by, we had a lot of rain over the summer. And so there were businesses who had damage to their buildings, or their businesses, they had economic injury. So those are some of the cases where SBA provides direct loans to small businesses. You apply to the SBA directly. So that's the D. So 3 C's and a D is kind of the mission with what our field office works on to make sure that both business owners, lenders, and partners know about SBA programs and are utilizing them. And I think we have a really strong ecosystem here. So a couple of nice things that we do to lift up the small business community that I thought are timely and of interest right now. We are taking our nominations for National Small Business Week, and so the deadline is December 5th. And the reason that I'm looking over in this direction at Mo is because she was one of the winners from one of our categories from this year. And it's just a great way to lift up the community. And the application, I know there's a lot of different awards that happen all over the place at different chambers and cities, and but this is a national recognition. And in 2023, we actually had the first National Small Business Person of the Year. So a gentleman named Kaheen from Afro Deli won the National Small Business Week Award from St. Paul. And so we were able to have a large roadshow event that had the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, come into town. We had the top SBA official come in from Washington, D.C. We had Governor Walz, Mayor Carter. We had a lot of local dignitaries. And so the reason I bring this up is we're looking for our next Kihin and our next Mo from the St. Paul area. So the timing for this is perfect. The deadline is December 5th. So you can nominate yourself or you can nominate someone in your community. And the criteria on this is that you have to be a small business owner and that you have to have used SBA programs or services. So that could be if you got a PPP loan, that's an SBA program. If you got an SBA loan, that's a program. If you saw a SCORE mentor, that's using SBA. So if you have any questions about that, for National Small Business Week, that deadline is December 5th. And it's just a great way, again, to lift up the community. And we usually get earned media for the winners and just do something uplifting. And I know there's all kinds of awards, so I'm just mentioning this to you right now, and especially it's kind of a busy week right after Thanksgiving. We were really proud I heard Professor mention the WIAMPI National Convention that he attended. We were fortunate enough to attract a regional economic convening this year at Met State. And so that's something that our team worked really hard on to organize some of the workshops and to make sure that we navigated the White House team to Met State. So that's something, just so you guys know, that's what we're working on. We want to support small businesses. We want to support the ecosystem. We are open to your ideas. If you have other ideas that we can try to that are a need of the community in particular, if there's a specific training, that's what our team is here for. If it's not us, then we try to convene and bring in other partners or experts to bring people together to serve the community. So that's what we're here for, and that's what we're working hard on. So those are a couple of highlights. I thought the WIAMPI Economic Summit, first of all, that was a huge event here for those who may have been there or didn't have a chance to go to. WIAMPI actually said it was the biggest economic summit that they've had anywhere across the country. So I think that's just something to be really proud of, that the community here really supported that and turned out for something that supported economic development. So lots of other good events, depending on how much time, I'm happy to loop back to that. I did just want to highlight one thing that we are doing right now also called the Season of Small. So right now we're actually looking to highlight small businesses following Small Business Saturday that just happened last weekend. And so we're doing visits across the state and across the community. Today, I'm actually going to be leaving here to go to Lake Street, and we're doing a tour with Mercado Central and a few businesses, Midtown Global Market, to lift up small businesses during this season. So I think we all know how important holiday sales are to small businesses. Many businesses that I talk to, it can represent 25% of annual revenue. So if anyone has any interest in having visits or some sort of theme for the Season of Small that you want to leverage, just let myself or Nat know. I think it's an opportunity and maybe something for Hmong 100 to think about leveraging for next year, because it's just a really great spotlight on small businesses and lifting up the communities. And we all know, I mentioned there's 550,000 small businesses here in the state of Minnesota. And that's a huge number, but really it's critical because that represents, they hire about 50% of our workforce here across the state. And so we all know how important small businesses are as the driver of the economic engines. They create 2 out of 3 new jobs in our communities, small businesses do. So again, we have information on our website. It's called the Season of Small, and it's just kind of a nice theme. You can Google Season of Small Business, and it'll come right up. now that Small Business Saturday is officially over, I think we just want to make sure to keep promoting shopping small all season long, not just on November 30th, Small Business Saturday. So that's something else we're working on. So as you can see, I'm not just talking about our some of our direct programs, but just kind of the theme of community support, training events, leveraging themes to lift up our small business community. I probably would be remiss, especially with the venue here at a financial institution, if I didn't go into a little bit more detail about SBA loan programs and how those work. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to just kind of not go, I'm going to give kind of a general overview, but I'm happy to go more in depth. But basically, an SBA-backed loan can help a small business for any purpose, really. So you can use an SBA loan to launch your business, to purchase a business, to purchase real estate, for a startup, to you can have a revolving credit line, so you can get a line of credit, you can purchase inventory, you can renovate your business, you can expand your facilities, you could purchase inventory. So really kind of a less known item, you can actually get an SBA loan to help export goods overseas. So it's really comprehensive, and we have 3 different programs that are kind of out front and center. So when you hear an SBA loan, our flagship program is called the 7A program. So it's literally the number 7 and the letter A is in alpha. So 7A. And that's really our flagship program. And that is done by SBA lenders. So you do not go to SBA directly to get a 7A loan. What SBA does is on the back end, we provide a guarantee, let's say about 75% to the bank or to any lender that's doing the SBA loan, so that they can do the loan that otherwise wouldn't happen. So when people ask me, where do I go? I want to get an SBA loan, and I'm probably going to get the 7A loan. That's kind of the flagship program. Where do I go for that? What I say is, who do you have your existing relationship with already? And they probably do SBA loans. So my best recommendation is to start with who you have a relationship with, but pretty much you can go to most lenders around the state. We have over 300 that do SBA loans. And we also, it's public information who the top SBA lenders are. So if you have any questions about that, we can point you in the right direction. If you want to look at who are the top 10 most active SBA lenders in Minnesota, you can find that. Again, that's public information. But you go to your SBA lender. You could meet with, as I mentioned, you could meet with a counselor before you go, so that you feel really confident, you know exactly what you need to ask, you're prepared. You go to your SBA lender, and it can be really competitive terms to a traditional loan. If you can qualify for a conventional traditional loan, we always say that is great. That's probably going to be the best rates and terms. SBA, we set the maximum interest rate on an SBA loan. And so what we do is depending on the size of the loan, it's based on prime rate plus a certain spread. So that's how the 7A program works. SBA lenders can compete underneath that ceiling. So let's say we say, prime rate is like around 8% right now, and let's say there's a spread of 2 or 3%. So I'm just giving a general example that let's say the SBA loan right now is 11%, which is much better than getting a credit card or some other source of capital, typically. So let's say for a 7A loan, I'm just giving the example, this isn't the official rate, that it's 11%. A lender or a bank could still give you 10% or 10.5%. And sometimes they will compete with each other. So as a business owner, again, if you have a relationship, you feel comfortable with that relationship, that's a great first place to go to the lender that you have a relationship with. But you can always feel like there are different options, and there are many options in Minnesota to look at what maybe you're going to get a better rate. So that's a personal business decision that you can make. And if you have any questions with that, you can let us know. So that's the 7A program. And the 7A program is, again, kind of our flagship guarantee loan program. So SBA, again, you don't go directly to SBA for the 7A loan. SBA, we work really hard with our lending community to guarantee those loans and make sure that the lenders know how the SBA loan programs work. Another program is called the 504 program, so literally the number 504. And that's for larger fixed assets. So if you're going to purchase a building, if you're going to purchase a big piece of equipment, maybe with like a 20, 25-year depreciation, the SBA 504 program is a really great program for you. And so you would go to one of our Minnesota or CDCs that serve the Minnesota community, and we have a list of those. There are about 7 of them here in Minnesota. And the interest rates right now for this 504 program are hovering, again, it depends, everything depends. This is not an official quote. It's like 6-ish% for the 504 program. And any of the SBA loans, you can get up to $5 million. So the 7A program, you can get from $500 to $5 million. The 504 program, depending on if you're a manufacturer, or there's some cases where you can go up to $5.5 million, but typically $5 million is the cap. And if you're doing something that is around green lending or environmentally sustainable, you can get multiple loans and go over that $5 million threshold. So that's kind of a new policy change that we have for this year for the 504 program. And then the third program that I mentioned to you is our microloan program. So that is a program where you go to a nonprofit lender, mission-based lender, and we have 9 microlenders here in the state of Minnesota that do SBA microlending. And these loans go up to $50,000. And for the microloan program, this is a great program, especially if you have limited credit, meaning you haven't had loans maybe for your business in the past, or you're just starting up a small business. And as we know, speaking of access to capital, no credit is bad credit. So you want to make sure that your business entity, as many of you know as very, very experienced business leaders here, your business has its own credit and your business is its own entity. But if you're not in that place and you haven't been running businesses for some time and you're a startup, the microloan program is a really great option. And the interest rates, again, this is not an official, I know I'm being recorded, it's not an official quote. It's maybe, each one is different. It could be like less than 7%. So, I think that's a really great stepping stone. I know it's up to 50,000. I think I talk to a lot of business owners who are just starting a business, and they talk to me and say, I want to get a line of credit for my business. And I ask, okay, how much are you thinking? And they say, well, maybe like 150,000 or 100,000. I just want to have a line of credit. And I tell them, well, that's great, but don't be offended if you should maybe think about something smaller, maybe 5 or 10,000, even just to get that track record and a business account going. Don't be offended by that. That's going to be kind of maybe the answer that you get with the banking and lending community. It's not you. That's just kind of the standard. So again, the 3 lending programs, just to summarize, are 7A, 504 microloan program, and there's kind of different benefits to using the different programs. They are really competitive. There's some really good flexible terms for them. And so I think I've covered a bit. I hope you learned something maybe new about the SBA today. We talked about 3 C's in a D, so capital, counseling, contracting, direct disaster relief programs that we do. Our team here at the field office is looking to meet the needs of the local community by different trainings. We also do a lot of trainings for the veteran communities. So thank you to all of our veterans. We have a lot of great resources there. So I'm going to turn it back over to the professor, and I'm absolutely happy to stick around and answer any questions. A great way to keep in touch with us is to sign up for our newsletter. And you can go to sba.gov/mn. So sba.gov/mn for Minnesota. And if you put in your Minnesota zip code, you're going to get the Minnesota newsletter. If you put in Wisconsin, you're not going to get our newsletter, I'm sorry, or Iowa or somewhere else. So make sure to put in a Minnesota zip code and you'll get our newsletter with training events that we have going on throughout the state of Minnesota. And then for those people that are on social media, we're on X and we're on LinkedIn. So I would recommend following us either on LinkedIn or X. And you can find us SBA Minnesota on social media. That's a great way to stay connected with us on upcoming events. So thank you very much. It's been an honor to be here today. And we're happy to be a resource to you in the community. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, take some questions.
Yeah, Brian, so under the new administration about the President Trump, do you foresee any change in the program for the SBA? And you mentioned about the line of credit. Is the line of credit in SBA, how is it different from regular bank line of credit?
So just to summarize, the question is what is going to be the impact now with the change of administration, and how does the SBA line of credit work essentially? We don't know the answer to the first question with the change of administration. I mentioned that I'm a career employee myself, and so I've served under several different presidential administrations. In the past, I know that the Trump administration has been very supportive, and SBA has in the past had strong bipartisan support. And I think that our programs are recognized for providing a lot of economic benefit and having a really great return on investment for taxpayer dollars. So one of the things that SBA says is that we're actually a zero subsidy program, meaning that your taxpayer dollars are being put to good use because the fees that we charge on some of our loan programs offset the costs to administer them. So I think we don't have a crystal ball on some of the policy changes and how things are going to be affected. But I know in the past we've had strong bipartisan support for SBA programs and services. I think we show that there's a real strong return on investment, and plus I mentioned that there's a strong survivability rate of business firms in Minnesota compared to nationally. And I think there's research that shows businesses that use SBA programs have a higher survivability rate than those that don't. So I think we're just going to keep administering our programs and services. So thank you for asking that question. And in terms of a line of credit, I think that it's pretty much similar to a traditional line of credit. And you're still going to go to your lender. And I think the one thing to keep in mind is you can always ask your lender, is SBA a good option? And so getting an SBA 7A revolving credit line or an SBA microloan, you can always ask some of your lenders, is that a good option for me? And I think that one kind of, I think everyone's focused on interest rates and fees, which they should be. But there are some incentives. I think it's worth comparing an SBA to a conventional loan. One quick story that we have is I know that when there was a lot of construction around the Excel Energy Center for the hockey stadium in downtown St. Paul, there was a number of businesses that had SBA loans, and they were able to survive compared to some of the businesses that didn't have an SBA loan. And one of the reasons is that an SBA lender could do something where they have flexibility to defer payments for 6 months. So they might have a little bit more, in some cases, flexibility with an SBA loan than under a conventional loan to give their borrowers a little bit more time when there's unforeseen circumstances. So that's just one example. But essentially, it's the same thing. So thanks for that.
Brian. you hear me? Can you explain a little bit the requirements for SBA 504, especially like owner occupied the building, total square feet? I think the majority probably not aware of it. The requirement for that, and also prepaid penalty. How's that work on the SBA 504 and then 784?
So a little bit more about the 504 program, and that's the question. And again, the 504 program is a really great program. Again, up to, in some cases, 5.5 million is the maximum. And you have to be a small business to qualify for the 504 program. And again, this program is really great if you're looking to purchase a building or a large piece of equipment, is what I mentioned for the 504 program. So in terms of, so you're asking, the one question that I heard is what we call a passive business. And what we mean by that is that it has to be owner occupied. So you can't use an SBA 504 loan for what we call real estate speculation. And so you have to be 51% or more owner occupied. So I hope that helps answer that question. So you could have some, revenue generation from rental income, but you have to, your business itself, it has to be an operating business. Real estate purchase has to be that 51% or greater, if that makes sense. So again, you can't get an SBA 504 loan for real estate speculation, is what we call it, which would be a passive business. You can use an SBA loan if you're going to build a bigger, like I just went to visit a business who expanded their business. They doubled the footprint of their business because they were producing more goods in it. And they used the 504 loan for a real estate renovation and build out. But they were going to be the operator of that entire space. So I think that's a good point to make, is that this would be not really a loan for kind of that real estate speculation. Now, I would have to kind of research a little bit more to your second question about some of the prepayment penalties, because it's kind of that answer that it depends. And so when you enter a loan, it's very clear when you're entering into an SBA loan. You'll sit down and you can look at what the terms are. But you do have to be careful. In some cases, there could be a situation where there's prepayment penalties. I know that on our direct loans that we give, for example, for the disaster relief money, there's no prepayment penalty. So I think it kind of depends on the program that you're looking at, and it depends on the exact circumstances, because there's some sort of, sometimes there's a guarantee fees, and so some of that comes into play. So, sorry, I can't kind of be more specific there, but I think it's something to be aware of, to look at the terms of your loan when you're closing the loan. And the 504 program is a little bit maybe more complex than the 7A program or the microloan program. So just something to be aware of. And although it's more complex, the lending partners that we have here do a really great job of explaining eligibility and what those requirements are. So thank you for that question.
Maybe this one for Matt. Can you explain a little bit more about the contracting? Maybe give two examples, because I'm sure there's a lot of Hmong businesses that don't know that we could get contracts with the federal government or the state government. And maybe give a few examples.
Okay, as Brian and I shared earlier about contracting, so the federal, we have AA certification, they have HUB zone certification, women-owned, veteran, disability, So the AA is basically a 9-year program. It's a very exclusive program. You only do that once in a lifetime. So when I do presentation, I meet small business owners through our networking training meeting. I share very specifically to them that this is a very important program, yet at the same time, it's a very difficult program. Because in the federal government, federal contracting, one thing that I learned, I could share with you guys, is about process. It's not like in the commercial world that you do like, here's what you do, here's what you do, period. In the government, we read everything. You know, like nowadays, talk about AI, right? And don't rely on your AI, you know, contracting to, I mean, down the future, we might use AI, government use, but for now, we don't. And contractors, contracting officers are people like me and you. We review contract very specifically. And the reason behind that is that what we do is for the public. Government is for the public. It's meaning that we want to be transparent. We'll be sure that what we do makes sense to every citizen, every businesses. So that is the reason I say it's hard, it's because you gotta have some money. You gotta have some capital. You can't just rely on that contract right away. Oh, I'm gonna get that, I'm gonna get millions and millions of dollars government. Well, that's a goal for us and for you too, but it takes time. So requirement for AA would be like you have to be at least 2 years into the business. And in the government contracting area, you can't just be a contractor. You have to be a specific business owner. In other words, you are doing the job. You can't just rely on people to help you. You can stop contract, but like Brian mentioned, 51%, you have to be the 51%. So you have to run it so that you don't screw up the project. Okay, government look at it that way, right? So that's AA program, and it takes some time, so don't rush it. If you're contracting, your professional services, whatever you do, as we say, government is the #1 buyer in the world. What does that mean? It means that government don't own anything. You look at like the military, like the Air Force, that's the fighter jets that you see, the F-22, right? All these planes. Come with so many vendors that government contractor. So you guys are vendor or contractor. So government don't own anything. We rely on contractor to, you know, we are the buyer. You guys are the contractor, right? The buyers are the government, okay? So I don't want to go too detailed with that. But that's basically, once you know that the government #1 buyer, then you know that. But keep in mind, if you're going to target a business or you have a business mission or what you want to do, make sure that government is buying what you are doing. If you don't research that, you can get a certification, you can get this and that, but you probably not end up with getting a contract. And that can get frustrated, right? That's AA program. So that's basically a big test of what I do is managing our, like Brian said, our AA portfolio. We have 21 firms in Minnesota who are AA certified. And AA is exclusive because once you get the contract AA, it's AA, right? AA cannot go to something else. It has to be the AA program. But at the same time, within that 9 years, you have to meet some requirement, compliance we call it. I have to look at what is small. Are you more than beyond what small is? So that's what we do as compliance, okay? The hub zone is, you have the 35%, you know, like with this has to be within that district, and your employee has to be there. So we have a lot of hub zone in Minnesota. Okay, look at that too, okay? That's another category. The other one is veterans. If you're a veteran, right? Some of you guys may be veterans, you can qualify to that veteran program too. And women-owned businesses, you have that certification, which each certification a little bit different too. So I don't do specifically every certification. I can just share you that those are federal certification program. Basically, Hub Zone and AA program is what I focus. I'm more on AA than Hub Zone, right? And again, contract can be very complicated. I'm in this job for a year and a little bit a year now, and I'm still learning. Why? Because it's a lot of changes, a lot of laws and regulations that I'm not a lawyer, right? So even though I'm a lawyer, you still have to go through all this kind of requirement. But not to scare you guys. Government is there for us to use, right? Certification is for us to use. So let me know if you have any questions down the road. So I cannot give you more example, more specific, but just give you an overview of that. And down the road, if you get interested, I can have a presentation where I can go through each certification But I can go more detail about what each does and application process and so forth and so on. Right? Yeah.
So I just wanted to, Nat is obviously being very modest, and I just wanted to point out that since he has been on our team, we've seen an increased rate of our firms receiving contracts from the federal government. So that is a real testament to how much you've provided back to the firms and the communities. And I just wanted to reiterate, we did bring some, now all information is all on SBA.gov online, but for those that like something in your hand, we brought some resource guides, and so there are some specifics about all the programs we've talked about, but at the end there's all about the certification programs, and so Nat mentioned the 8A program, so there's information about the eligibility for that program, but essentially, if you're in this program, you can get a sole source contract from the federal government. You can get set aside money, and then you can actually form a joint venture with a larger firm, and then together compete as if you're a small firm. And the federal government has a goal that 23% of contracts go to small businesses. So again, like I was mentioning, this just helps your eligibility and for you to get more revenue coming in your door. And then Nat mentioned, so 8A, but there's also the Woman-Owned Small Business Certification Program called WOSB, W-O-S-B. There's something for service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. And then there's a place-based program called the Hub Zone program. So feel free to grab one of our resource guides or go online and we can kind of provide more details. But I think that would be a session if you guys wanted. Nat could provide kind of more details about each of those certifications. And now, sorry to be long-winded, the SBA has revamped the application process. So there's kind of a new portal to apply for all these certifications online now that hopefully should be a little bit more user-friendly than in the past.
I think maybe one more question back there. Somebody's got the mic.
Yeah. Brian, I want to get back to the you said the 504 program where you can borrow SBA to renovate the empty building that you own, right?
So you can use the 504 program to renovate a building that you own, as long as it's not going to be what we call passive income. So yes, you can use 504 to renovate your building, and that's actually like a huge use of the 504 program. But is your business going to be operating in that building? So you're not just going to renovate it and then rent it out, if that makes sense. As long as you renovate it and then you're using it for your own inventory, for your own business, and it's not passive income, as we call it, meaning that you're just doing real estate speculation. Hope that helps.
So and then you also be able to get a loan and to build a new building for your business.
Correct. So I actually just met with a business owner from the API community. He now has, I believe, gotten 5 or 6 504 loans, and he has surpassed that $5 million cap. But the reason, and he's doing childcare facilities, and the reason that he's able to go beyond that 5 million is because he's doing energy efficient projects. So part of his buildings that he's purchasing using 504 have solar panels on the roof, and so then he's able to be eligible to go have multiple loans, and he's purchased several childcare facilities, for example, because it has that renewable green energy, which is a new eligibility, so you can get multiple 504 loans, but he used it to purchase those buildings.
So kind of building on top of that, so how do we, for example, like one of the things that we've been talking about was storage facilities, right? is that considered a passive? And is that, and what's the difference between the passive versus active business?
So I would have to kind of give, I don't want to, I would want to make sure to kind of, you know, give you the official definition of passive, but I think that, you know, I think it's worth looking into as a use, because I know I've talked to business owners who have had storage unit businesses, and so in my mind, you're probably the business owner of that facility, and so I think it could be worth looking into in that situation.
When discussing economic opportunities, you stated that Minnesota has some. What are some areas you see for us living here in Minnesota we can start capitalizing on? And what other areas do you see us in Minnesota we're good at? And what areas do you see that we need help in? Also, what part do you see the Hmong community being part of this process?
Yeah, no, I think, thank you for that question. So, I might actually need you to repeat that just one more time, Mike. I'm sorry, that's such a good question.
All right. When discussing economic opportunities, you stated that Minnesota has some. What areas do you see us living here in Minnesota can start to capitalize on? And what are the areas you see us in Minnesota where we're good at? And what areas do you see that we actually need help in? Also, what do you see the Hmong community being part of this process?
Yeah, so I think that, like I mentioned, I think there is a strong economy here in Minnesota, so I think there's a lot to leverage. I think another strength is that I mentioned we have a very high number of SBA lenders, so we have an active SBA lending community. So I think that is maybe the utilization we can continue to move the needle on all of our communities using SBA as a program to support. And so I think, you know, some of the challenges that we face here, of course, is workforce. And so I think, you know, typically everywhere you go, one of the number one challenges for businesses is access to capital. But I think something that is particularly unique here in Minnesota is that we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. And I think just having, you know, the workforce shortages is something that we hear is really common. So I think for us to make sure that, okay, just because we have a high number of SBA lenders, I think making sure that this is a really great tool that all of our communities can use. So let's make sure we're at least aware of this tool, considering it as we make a business decision. Maybe there's a better option, but at least knowing that this is a tool that's available on the table to use. And so I think we're looking forward to more training opportunities for the coming years. So I think there's a new program, and this may be something we could, to your question, work with you and the Chamber and Hmong 100 on. There's something that is rolling out as a curriculum next year at the national level called Are You Lender Ready? And so they're giving us this national curriculum. It's called Are You Lender Ready? And they've already been piloting it in some states around the country. But they're going to say to all the field offices around the country, we would like you to do something for this. They're going to give us some really great content, and we just have to make sure that we localize it, meaning that, you know, our job is going to be to bring together who are going to be some of the lenders that are the presenters at this event, and just making sure that it's really helpful and relevant to our community here. So I think that's just one example. For the next year is maybe we have this opportunity to take this national curriculum that makes all of our lives, you know, makes it easier because we have this kind of set content, but then how can we make it strong for Minnesota?
All right, I think they need to leave soon, and the food is getting cold. One of the things that we got, you guys make good food, but you talk too long. By the time you eat, the food's no longer good. We say if you don't keep the food for last, people leave, right? Anyways, I hear a couple of things, Brian. Thank you very much for the presentation. And a couple takeaway from me is, again, the National Small Business Week Award. Mo was the recipient last year. That's a good way to elevate your business. The other thing is, I got a call from a reporter over the weekend to say, what is the economic contributions of the Hmong New Year to the local economy? And I have no clue. And so I think perhaps, maybe the next, maybe before the New Year next year, we do a tour to Hmong Village, Hmong Town Marketplace, and to also highlight many of the businesses on the pig farming area here that are owned by Hmong people. So we'd love to be part of that process. I think that's good. The other thing I hear is also perhaps we need to do a session specifically on contracting, how we become a vendor with the government. And there's some huge contracts there as well. So I think that's the other part that I think is important to do. And then the curriculum, how do we be ready to take advantage of all the opportunities. So a couple things, couple takeaway, and I hope we'll take advantage of these things next year or even starting from now. And I hope the session was very helpful. I wanted to bring to the podium our program chair, Gabo Yang, and they manage all of our programming for throughout the year. So I'm going to have her do a little bit of closing.
Thanks, Lepao. So thank you, Lepao, for facilitating, for getting us going. Thank you, Brian and Matt, for joining us today and sharing much more information about what we have available to our businesses. And so this is an example of things that we try to do for the community. We're trying to use our position to connect community members to resources as well as get resources out to the community. So if you have ideas, please do let us know. We only know what we know from our position, but we look to you to let us know how we can get more resources out to you, and we continue to learn about the community. We have a growing, diverse community, so we really rely on all of you to be our eyes out there. We're working on our 2025 calendar, so we'll certainly keep you updated. We are still developing a lot of things. As Bob mentioned, we're 2024 brand new, so we're still newborns. Still in our infrastructure as far as our contact list, our presence, and so please be patient, but we do certainly think of you all as valuable partners in this. And so, keep in touch with us as we build our contact list. We'll update you all on what we have coming up in the next year or so. In the meantime, I just wanted to thank you all for coming today. I wanted to just encourage you all as we have lunch to talk to each other. We have several established, experienced business owners in here. Tua Zhang with Hmong Town Marketplace, Mo with Mo's Tropical, many others in here. So do talk with each other. We've got a mic from the Hmong Chamber here, so they've got great resource for small business as well too. And so we have lunch ready. Stick around, have lunch, talk to each other. And if we don't see you this year, we'll see you in 2025.